All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into one of the Bible's most enduring mysteries, the 144,000 from the book of Revelation. Now, we're going to explore a really unique and frankly intricate interpretation that argues the answer isn't where you'd expect to find it. No, this theory claims the key is actually hidden way back in the Old Testament in the very architecture of Solomon's temple. So let's just jump right in with the big question, the one that theologians and scholars have been debating for centuries. Who are the 144,000 from the book of Revelation? I mean, is that a literal number of people? Is it a symbolic group? Or is it something else entirely? That's what we're here to unpack. Okay, so to really get our heads around this complex theory, here's the roadmap we're going to follow. We'll kick things off with the mystery of the 144,000 itself. Then, we'll look at the two bronze columns. Yeah, you heard that right. From there, we'll get into the prophetic calculation. See how the numbers supposedly add up. Then we'll cover the two witnesses' mission, their identity as angels born on earth, and finally, their role in judgment and the millennium. It's going to be a wild ride. So, Section 1, the mystery of the 144,000. This is all about a symbolic blueprint. The core idea here, according to the source we're looking at, is that the number 144,000, well, it's not a literal headcount of people, not at all. Instead, it's the end result of a very specific, symbolic blueprint that's found way, way earlier in the Old Testament. All right, now for the foundational symbol, the two bronze columns. And believe me, this is where things start to get really wild. According to this theory, the key to the whole mystery of the 144,000, it doesn't even start in the book of Revelation. Nope. It starts right here with these two gigantic bronze columns that used to stand at the entrance to Solomon's temple. Who would have thought, right? The Old Testament, specifically in 1 Kings, tells us all about these pillars. It says he cast two bronze pillars, each 18 cubits high and 12 cubits in circumference. Now, you might think, okay, those are just architectural details. But according to the source we're digging into, these numbers are anything but random. They are supposedly the key variables in a prophetic equation that cracks the whole thing wide open. So, how do we get from columns to people? Well, to build its case, the theory connects these pillars to a Jewish concept called a minyan. Now, a minyan is basically a quorum, a group of 10 adults that you need for certain religious services. And this theory says that this group of 10, the minyan, is the absolute foundational building block for the 144,000. So definitely keep that number, 10, in your head. Okay, so now for the prophetic calculation. This is all about how the numbers add up. So how do we get from bronze columns in groups of 10 all the way to 144,000? Well, now we get to the math. And the source lays out a very specific, multi-step calculation that all starts with the dimensions of those two columns we just talked about. All right, here's the formula laid out for us. Let's break this down step by step, because it's a little wild. First, you calculate what the theory calls a symbolic volume. It gets this by taking the circumference, 12 cubits, squaring it to get 144, and then cutting that in half, which gives you 72. Okay, stick with me. Step 2. Remember the 200 pomegranates decorating the columns? The theory says those represent the world's nations. So step 3. You multiply that volume, 72, by the 200 nations, and that gets you 14,400. That's our number of groups, or minions. And for the grand finale, step 4. You take those 14,400 groups and multiply them by 10 people per group, and voila, you land on exactly 144,000. Pretty specific, right? So, now we have the number. But what's the point? What is the purpose of this group? According to this interpretation, they are not just a number to be counted. Oh no, they have an absolutely crucial and, frankly, incredibly dramatic mission to carry out during the end times. And this timeline lays out their unbelievable journey. The theory goes like this. At the very start of the tribulation, they're abducted from Jerusalem and scattered across the world's cities like prisoners. For 1,260 days, that's 3.5 years, they act as the famous two witnesses from Revelation, prophesying and even striking the earth with plagues. But then, their mission comes to a brutal end. The beast rises, fights them, and kills them. But that's not the end of the story. Just 3.5 days later, they are resurrected for the whole world to see and then ascend to heaven, which kicks off the final judgments. I mean, talk about dramatic. And they're not all going to be in one place either. The source is very specific about this. It argues they'll be strategically sent out in pairs of minions, so groups of 20, to 7,200 key cities all across the globe to do their work, a massive, coordinated effort. Okay, so now we get to what is, without a doubt, the most radical, most mind-blowing claim in this entire theory. And it's all about the fundamental nature of who, or maybe I should say what, the 144,000 actually are. Get ready for this. According to the source, the 144,000 are not human. That's right, they are angels, born into human bodies. This isn't a story about human saints. It's a story about celestial beings incarnated for a top-secret divine mission right here on Earth. Now, to help explain this pretty wild idea, the author draws a really sharp contrast with another group of angels you might have heard of from ancient texts like the Book of Enoch, and that's the fallen angels known as the Watchers. They basically represent the polar opposite, a total corruption of a divine mission. And this comparison really spells it out, doesn't it? On one side, you have the Watchers, the fallen angels. Their motive? Lust and rebellion. Their action? Corrupting humanity. And the outcome? They created giants and chaos. But then you have the 144,000, the holy angels. Their motive is service and redemption. Their action is to testify for God. And their outcome? They remain virgins, totally holy. It's a perfect counter-narrative to the legacy of those fallen angels. So how does an angel get born into a human body? Well, the theory provides a really specific and honestly pretty harrowing origin story. It claims these angelic souls enter the world during a moment of intense violence, the invasion of Jerusalem by foreign armies. And during the horrific acts that happen in war, it said that angels divinely intervene at the very moment of conception to alter the genetics of the unborn. The result is that these children are born as these holy, incarnated beings. It's a lot to take in. All right, let's move on to their final role, judgment and the millennium. What happens after their crazy mission on Earth is all said and done? Well, according to this source, their job is far, far from over. Yeah, their work doesn't just stop when they ascend to heaven, not by a long shot. This interpretation gives them a whole bunch of powerful new jobs in the 1,000-year kingdom to come. We're talking pillars of the world, the two witnesses, priests of God, judges of nations. They're even called the protective ribs of Christ. And, maybe most importantly, they're the heirs to the kingdoms of earth. And all of this culminates in them fulfilling a very specific prophecy from the book of Revelation. The text says, "They came to life and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. They will be priests of God and of Christ and will reign with him for 1,000 years." So after their resurrection, they're not just saved, they're given the authority to judge and rule right alongside Christ during the millennium. And this is where the whole theory comes full circle, really tying their final destiny together. Remember how they were conceived during an invasion? The source claims that because they are the biological children of the world's invading military leaders, the kings of the earth, they are perfectly positioned to inherit the world. They become the rightful heirs to take over those very thrones, kicking out all the corrupt rulers and establishing a brand new righteous kingdom on earth. So, at the end of all this, we're left with a pretty fascinating question, aren't we? How does this kind of deep symbolic interpretation reshape how we understand these ancient texts and prophecies? I mean, whether you find this specific theory compelling or just a little bit out there, it really does highlight the power of symbolism. And it kind of makes you wonder, what other ancient mysteries have these radical new meanings just hiding beneath the surface, waiting for someone to find the right key to unlock them?